You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Hey Jeepers, welcome to episode 110 of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. I'm Kevin, the engineer, the guy who reads the instructions, uses the right tools, and generally follows those instructions. And to my left is...
And I'm Scott, I'm the slapstick parts guy. Also letting you know there's show 110, and good afternoon, students. Congratulations, it's time for the school announcements. Congratulations to the debate team for taking the state champions and why you needed a fire extinguisher. Just a heads up, there are some crispy Jeep parts for sale in the library. Today's lunch will be sub sandwiches, including tater tots.
If I'm going to play principal, I'm going to say it's library, not library.
Okay, well we'll check the caliber of our calipers later. So, and remember to sign up for the fall dance coming soon. So get your tickets early and make sure to ask your significant other to go. And also, and lastly, pictures will also be taking on Tuesday. So make sure to wear your best Jeep event shirt. So that concludes the announcements for today. And I'm the slapstick parts guy that doesn't read the instructions and also sits here and drives this man, poor Kevin, crazy.
That is probably one of the longest intros I think we have ever had.
Oh, I got another paragraph to go during the break.
Oh, joy, 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 joy. Well, how about the patrons are sitting here going, but who is the blonde sitting to Kevin's right? Now everybody on air is going, what?
This show is recorded in front of a mostly live studio audience.
It is, yes. They survived yesterday at Ron's shop, so they're here resting in the studio today. Stacy, why don't you give us a short intro, who you are, what you do, and I know that it's hard to do it short, but tell us about your Jeeps.
No pressure. Oh, yeah.
No pressure
There's
at all.
only 4 of them, but yes.
Yeah.
My name is Stacy. A lot of people know me as Stacy with Raceline, but I'm also Southern is Sweet Tea on Instagram, and I travel with Raceline, Metal Cloak, Warren, Artec. There's actually a large amount of companies that I actually travel East and West Coast doing shows, private events, and it's a lot of educating.
Sweet.
I spend a lot of time educating people, and I don't
It's
push
sweet
product. It's more about explaining why I use what I use and the quality behind it.
Cool.
Well, let's start off, folks. First off, she is a fabricator.
Yes.
She is a
Little
driver.
bit. I'm learning.
She's learning, but I've got shots of her in Red Scorpion Fab Works, grinder in hand, and sparks going everywhere with me going, like Scott's reference, to a fire extinguisher.
Usually,
Oh, no, it looks like an 80s rock band.
Okay.
Good reference. Yeah, well, it's, as opposed to when me and Kevin work and there's sparks because I did something wrong.
Well, when Scott's working with a grinder overhead and sparks are flying, I'm waiting to see what's going to fall on him.
Well, wiring plus me does equal fire.
So, so she wheels and wheels hard.
Yes, I actually do.
And the thing that I found interesting, I was talking to her the other day before we talked about coming on the show, was how many Jeeps do you have and where are they in this country?
Oh, Lord. I think my end goal will maybe be 1 Jeep in every state. Wouldn't that be awesome? I could
You're
just
headed
wheel
that
any
way,
area,
girl.
And I just have it there. But at the moment, I have 1 in Ron's shop. It's a JKU, about to be a 1-ton build.
So that's in Florida.
Yes, sir. And I also have we have a CJ5 in Florida. But then as we move on up, we have my CJ7 is in Tennessee. And it is also currently being built a little bit because Phytech has come on board and talked me out of my propane, which I didn't think would happen. But they have an amazing fuel injection system that has actually talked me out of my propane. And then we have a TJ out in California that I was very blessed to actually get to do the Rubicon Trail with
Awesome.
Jen Wright and all them. And it was definitely a workout. It's not one of those enjoy yourself trail. It's one of those work yourself trail.
Hey, that's the best way to learn.
That is when you're
Well, it's full motion, hard working, through the trail.
And repeat what you told me about, though, some of the challenges you had, particularly in the bowl.
Oh, yeah. I got to go, they call it the soup kitchen and the Super Bowl, or no, the soup bowl.
Soup bowl.
And the soup kitchen. And when I pull up to an obstacle, I like to say it's a lot because I'm a girl. There's usually 15, 20 people hollering directions at me. And I like to scout out the obstacle first, and I like to pick a line.
Wise decision.
Yes, and I will say if I had a superpower, it would be picking lines.
Cool.
I really enjoy the technical part of it. And so I took a real good look at this, and I'm in the TJ. I've kind of gotten a feel for the wheelbase and everything. And so I line up, and next thing I know, there's a guy in front of me screaming at me that I'm not on the line. I'm like, wait, yes, I'm on my line. And so...
But you're not on his line.
I know. I had to convince him to get out in front of my Jeep. I won't explain how I did that. But...
Creep forward.
But
Family show.
But I continued on, and I went straight up and over, straight between the two lines. And
Made it over with no
it
problem.
was amazing. I had people come up to me afterwards, and the whole place just erupted. It was kind of overwhelming, but everyone just was so encouraging. And after that, I had people who told me, I've wheeled that trail for 10 years or better. I've never been able to make this obstacle. And now, thanks to your line, I can do it. And it's all about understanding your Jeep, feeling your Jeep, and just when you pick that line, when you travel across the line, you can feel it. Or I can.
Well, it
I
comes
can
second
feel
nature
it
to you.
in my Jeep.
Right.
That I'm still on my line.
And what do we always talk about? Get to know your Jeep.
Get to know your
preferably
Jeep.
before you mod it. But editorial comment, nobody on the trail and Kevin and Scott condone driving over your spotters. That's not a good idea, folks.
Well,
With that, we'll move on.
Well, the important thing is we always talk about walking the line. You know what I mean? Getting out, walking the
Yeah, if
obstacle,
it's your
taking
first-
a look at it.
Right.
Get a feel for it.
Yeah.
Look at it. Compare it in your mind to trails that you've already driven. I mean, we walked Dory up the trench in North Georgia that required you to hang on your side biters on one side. So you had nothing but air under your tread, but you drove the side biters. And I still remember that very vivid moment when I looked and I was yelling at her, fold in your mirror. Driver's mirror in, driver mirror in. She's like, why? Driver mirror in now, as she slowly slid. Thunk. And at which point, she was fine. A little panic struck, wasn't she?
No, I was more panic struck because I'm like, oh no, don't end the door, don't end the door.
And it's like, now we're going to get you out. And she's like, well, how are we going to do that? I said, turn left. She goes, I can't. There's dirt.
There is no
turn
left. It's
left.
driver.
Yeah, well,
Ah,
I get
touche.
but I was at a conversation. I wasn't spotting at that point. I got to stay by the mic. Sorry, I was. And we held her in there and had her put both hands on the wheel, haul over to driver, and just then start applying gentle throttle and keep hauling to driver. And the Jeep literally crawled back up, got itself on an even keel, kept her to keep one hand always pulling down on driver's side, just balancing. And it's about, a third of the way up, she got the feel for balancing, and she came up. But the funniest thing was, and I tried to dig the picture up, but I can't find it, was she got out and said, did I hurt anything? And you couldn't see a wheel. All you saw were brown discs. It had filled the rims completely solid
Just
with
shaved
Georgia
that wall.
clay.
Yeah.
Which, needless to say, balanced really well on the road
Oh,
home.
that is great.
You call Scott on the radio. Hey, Scott, how's it going? I'm lying. Like, okay, you're first to the wash rack.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, we understand. You pick your line,
Yes.
and it's your line, not anybody else's. And if
Right.
everybody does it that way, then what's the fun? That's a known trail.
Right, exactly.
So-
I am a little crazy. I do like to pick harder lines that are sometimes necessary. And you'll see me sometimes if you've wheeled with me, you'll see me walking a line, and I probably look very silly, but you'll catch me doing kind of like this with my hands. And it's because I'm trying to actually walk my tires through the obstacle.
And you're feeling the teeter-totter.
Yeah, and all the guys are all standing around. They're like, yeah, we can do this, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make sure I do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and usually in one try, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Sometimes I make it look, sometimes my rig will make it look a little too easy.
Right.
And there's no video, no proof, no nothing, because everybody
Is just-
expects, they're waiting for the fumble, and they're waiting for the, so they think they still have time. And unfortunately, I'm bad about slipping through, and I don't get on the videos as much as I'd like.
Yeah, well.
But
And I know that you trail lead a lot now, and you were talking about that, and that's one of the problems is nobody videos the trail lead.
oh, yeah.
It's, We actually have a policy when we go out in the small groups that we do, and that is everybody rotates trail lead. And it's not so much just for experience, while that's good, because we got a few of our friends that are like, I don't really want to go first. You're going to go first. Why? Because we'll never get a video of you, and you won't get a forward, facing us from the backside. Because most of us have camera mounts on the tail of our Jeep, as well as the front.
I took a trailer hitch piece with a drop down, and mount the GoPro backwards on that, slide it in, so there's a low facing backwards, and we put one on the front. So there's one always camera rig that gets front and rear video at the same time.
Although I will admit, the best one we ever saw on Scott's Jeep, and it was a prior Jeep that he had, but we rigged a mount inside the front bumper facing his front suspension.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
nice
it was
angle.
fairly protected. And we've got shots of him coming up on obstacles and
Going
through
water.
water.
Yeah.
And even to the point that the camera disappears in the water and you just see the bubbles and everything like that. And all of a sudden it comes up and you see the tire crawling back out again.
Oh, that's cool.
And you see the articulation and the flex. And
Well, next time we go wheeling, that's why we have we have 4 GoPro now.
Right.
And so that way we can put under suspension shots to get the articulation, because it's cool to see the vehicle articulate. That's cool, but what's even better is watching that suspension just give it the works.
yeah.
The drive shaft
It's a
spinning.
different
kinda
viewpoint. And we got to get to that. This one's been relegated to permanent. The one you're seeing us on for the Patreons is the one that's been relegated to permanent inside nodie. It doesn't have a battery in it anymore. It's got back probes. It's got all kinds of things so that it can video, sound, all that stuff.
That's like a Borg from Next Generation.
I'm actually
That
jealous.
works.
I'm going to be
That
looking
works.
at one of those.
Anyway, so back to it. And so you guys are here in obviously looking at Ron's build of your Jeep, getting it started. Unfortunately, Ron's going through a little bit of a real estate issue. The lessor of the current shop has changed, and he's moving on to another location. And we're helping him. I'm helping him set up his new shop and get him moved over as quick as possible. And then your Jeep will be finished in there. Yep.
I'm ready.
Oh, I'm sure. So we'll get that going. Let's see what else is going on. So we haven't had a whole lot of wheeling. That's sad to say.
Yeah.
I forgot to tell you. I got a check engine light on my Jeep.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. Looked up the code.
What is it?
It's
cap?
let's see, a B code for a body mod, and it's 2.
Tickets to Paradise?
No.
Islands in the
I
Chain?
got to stop. Give me a second.
Okay.
2C2L.
Okay. What's that?
Too clean, too long.
Ah.
It's complaining. It doesn't like the fact that it hasn't had a dirt diet. And so I've got to get that taken care of soon. So we may have to go find a local hole somewhere and bury it in mud and winch it out. Not that I'm a big fan of mud.
That's okay. I got a CIW code in mine.
And that is?
Chip in windshield.
Oh,
Getting a
that's
new
true.
windshield.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. What were you telling me? You were coming down, was it I-75 or I-4?
Yeah, I was going on I-75, and I'm just doing do, bang. I'm like, that there's a
Truck
windshield.
carrying like 1 or 1.5 inch gravel.
Riverstones, basically.
Riverstone. I'm guessing the tailgate wasn't locked, because what
Across
you say about
all 4 lanes of highway, there was like about 800 feet of just
Stones.
rock across all 4 lanes.
So we got to make a segue for the Patreons here. Who is the
Oh.
4th visitor to the podcast?
She was snoring, and I could hear her.
So
This is Lilo. She is a 5-pound Yorkie. She just turned 6 years old. And any of you that's wheeled with me, you've very likely seen her out on the trail.
So here we have a purse dog that's a Jeep purse dog.
Oh, she
So-
goes on the airboat. She goes in the Jeeps. She goes traveling all over the U.S.
This is the calmest animal I have ever met in my life, folks. She'd probably, you'd see the Jeep roll over, and you'd probably see Stacy crawl out, and the dog would go, "Oh, okay. Oh, you want me to get up? All right.
Yeah, doing the yawn stretch, going, all right, let's go. Let's
Let's
this
go.
done."
Roll it back over and keep moving."
My Vienna sausages are okay, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Lisa's.
Yes, well, this is one spoiled pooch.
She's
So,
a good girl. She
just-
don't shed, don't
She-
bark, so
dude, just quick question.
deserves it.
What year and what all have you done to the TJ?
Oh, the TJ is a 99, and actually it was so far already built when we got it. We got it from Scott Dinger, and it was already kind of a race line build.
Cool.
So it's got a lot of nice companies on it. And I say companies, but just if you back a company, it needs to be because they're quality and because you can tell your mom, your brother, anybody, and anybody a year later doesn't come to you and go, you just made me waste my check. I worked very hard for that.
See why I invited her on the show?
Yeah, no, I did.
Yeah, I can't be bought.
No, but
It's
I'm
gotta
laughing
be
because
real.
that's what Scott and I have been talking about. People, you
Yeah.
need to do your research. You need to make
Yes.
sure that you're buying what you need. You know, you can
If it's
add what
free,
you
it
want.
doesn't mean it's me because that's You don't make people waste their money
No.
Yeah. So,
or hurt their Jeeps.
oh,
And if you cost them a wheeling trip, they're not gonna like you.
no,
You know, that's words to live by right there. Think about it.
that is words to live by. So, any specific? I know you've kind of slipped them in a few, but any shout outs you want to give to any of your, let's call them teammates? You know, you said Raceline.
Oh yeah, there's Raceline. There's Metal Cloak is one of my.
Gee, I wouldn't
big
know them,
ones.
would we, Scott?
Yeah. Hi, Kevin.
Aw.
Kevin at Metal Cloak.
At Metal Cloak,
Yeah.
yes, we know.
Well, we got Rich, and we've got my brain lost it.
That's all right.
Anyway,
That's okay. I got a show note here to give out shout outs to social media and your race line and etc.
etc.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
But I have to say, well, there's like PSC, which is basically across the board. Anybody, if you, especially if you're little like me, you want to be able to turn that steering wheel, you need a company
Come
that
crawl
can
out
help
under
you.
the front of my Jeep, you'll see a PSC box.
And Tim that travels with them is one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met in my
I
life.
think I've talked to Tim
And
when
he
I was
is
buying
like
my box.
widely knowledgeable, not just his product, but he understands, the race cars and the.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to know it. You got to have a broad spectrum, a broad.
Understands whether you're
Education,
going
I
slow
guess.
and strong or fast and sharp.
Right, exactly.
So that's awesome.
And we got Artec Industries, which they've got some real quality products, and you got Armando, who is just an amazing person. You'll also see him out at shows all across the U.S.
I think
And
Ron
it's
has
nice that you
installed
have
more
these
than a few
companies.
Artex trusses.
Yeah, it's nice that you have the companies where it doesn't matter who you are. It could be a $300 part, a $50 part, a $10,000 investment. It doesn't matter. If you have these people where anybody can walk up to them and talk to them, and they'll stop what they're doing and actually explain and answer questions, especially when you're doing a show and you got 200-300 people coming by you. If they will actually give you a moment of their knowledge, that's amazing.
It is.
And I have seen, companies that aren't willing to do that. And so I have a lot of respect for the ones who, it doesn't matter who you are or what you're interested in, because there could be 8 people in your circle
Yep.
who are interested in different levels.
Yep.
So
I do wanna
taking
take-
that moment. It's awesome.
A quick little byline on that, because Kevin and I actually, it's actually a good segue to work this in. It's a small little trip, and I do apologize, so bear with
Cool.
me here. But Kevin and I talked about new Jeepers, and we covered this in the last show, 109, and it's about how, sometimes, you can get frustrating, the same question 1,000 times, but you talk about sharing that knowledge and taking that time. Kevin was looking at a new computer for video editing, okay?
Oh.
And,
I
again-
wasn't. Well, I was looking for me, but you
Yeah.
were looking at one for
Well,
school and audio editing.
yeah, and everything else. And, so of course, it's funny because when you go, you ask a simple question on Google Lines or in a chat room, it's like, hey, what's the best computer for this editing? And they go, okay, well, this Alienware, blah, blah, blah. Oh, wow, that's $9,000. I don't have the money for that.
Well, it
Right.
gets worse. It gets worse.
It gets
Oh,
worse.
no.
And then so you go, okay, so I'm like, all right, well, video editing, let's go there. So you type in best video, it comes up with a new Mac Pro. Now, I've been looking at getting a refurbished Mac Pro. I actually already have a Mac Pro. I call it Illuminator the Almighty. It's a giant, 75-pound case. But basically, it's this giant aluminum case. And so now they came out with one they called the trash can. It's a little black round cylinder. It's a Mac Pro.
Looks
and
like one of those little desk trash cans with a flip
it's
top.
exactly what it looks like.
A miniature R2D2.
You can find those,
Another Star Wars.
refurb for like $1,700. Okay, cool, cool. And one guy said, we need to get one of the new Mac Pros. I'm like, okay. So I researched a new Mac Pro because, refurbished $1,700, the new one out. Okay, what, $5,000, $55,000.
And I said, oh, you mean 5,500? And he says, no, and sent me the link.
To a refurbished that was $44,000, 2 years
More
old.
than my Jeep cost. I'm like, no.
So when we go back to this, so when we're rewinding the reason why we went down this little dirt road, if you will, is because when you get those new Jeepers that come in, well, what do I need? And that's why Kevin and I preach get to know your Jeep firsthand, because everyone's screaming you need tons and 40s.
No.
Well, not everyone does.
In fact,
I don't need
most of you don't.
I don't need a
Right.
$45,000 computer. The one I ordered and what should be there, actually, I just got the ding a few minutes ago, was delivered to my P.O. box. It'll do me just fine, and for what I'm going to do. So you talk about being nice and taking that time to share that information.
Right.
That goes with if you have the information to share, be cool about it. Take the time to
absolutely.
nurture
and
the next group coming
understand
up.
that you will repeat yourself.
Oh.
And that's fine. You're helping, everybody's new once,
Yes.
and if we're going to keep the Jeeping community alive, there has to be new people.
Yes.
Everybody who's going to walk in and asks, what's the first mod I should do to my Jeep? So every time you're going to get that same question. You really can't go, well, go Google it, then. Aren't you doing your homework?
You see that on
It's
forums
like,
and on
just-
Facebook a
yeah.
lot. You see the nasty comments.
Calm
It's not
down,
fair.
and remember
Yeah.
that if somebody had behaved that way, would you still, when you ask the question, would you still be driving a Jeep?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
we need to keep it in family. The Bronco's coming out. So is the FJ. You got a cool stay, or is that what you wanted to say? Yeah,
Yes.
and that's
And-
to take that little site you talked about, and I'm sorry, Kevin. Is
No,
that
you're fine.
when you talked about how people at the show is willing to take that time and answer those questions
Yes.
and see 300 people.
Right.
Those are the passion people that will answer the same question
Over and
300
over and over.
times for
Yep.
10 hours because they're passionate about the product, the Jeep, and the people. The people who get snarky about it are there for a paycheck,
Yeah.
And sad but true.
which there's nothing wrong with. I
Sad
mean,
but
I go
true.
to work for a paycheck too, but
Well, I'm there as a vendor, and I still see it. I
Yep.
still go from booth to booth, and I'll never slam anybody, but it's just as soon as I see it, someone actually taking that moment and sharing that wisdom, and I know I'm talked out by the end of the day. I'm ready for a cold drink and a good meal because that's been a lot of
Long day.
people, and I can be in a booth full of men, and they will pick me out because it's like they think that I'll be the nicer one. I'll be the one, which out of everybody, they should be a lot more knowledgeable than me, but I will. I'll climb under my Jeep. I don't matter. It just whatever's there, we'll talk about it, and we'll.
Cool.
I'm like you. Not everybody needs 40s,
No.
and not everybody. I had when I first started out. I had the JKU with the 35s, no lockers, a little bit of a lift. But I didn't have lights. But
hey, lights are okay. Lights
yeah.
are okay.
But I kept up with the people in 40s because I didn't mind using the skinny pedal, and then the redneck locker. You
Yep.
can pull your handbrake a little bit.
And get that spinning
it'll,
wheel
like,
to slow
sink it
down.
down and
see-
bring it on up.
We have two definitions of redneck locker.
Okay.
Mine is hit it as hard and as fast as you can, and if you get airborne, that's even better. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You'll
Make sure you shout out, hey, y'all, YouTube this.
Yeah. That's one of I had a new Jeeper. He started up and he asked questions about pointers, and I said, if you're trying an obstacle for the second time and people have their cell phones out, stop.
Yeah.
Well, why? Because they're getting ready to video YouTube you being something very stupid
Yep.
and very expensive. And he goes, I never thought of that way.
Yeah.
And you're going to hear people say, "Oh, hit it harder, hit it with your purse," because
Yeah.
they're not the one making the payment.
Well,
They're not the
yeah,
one
that's
that's
If
going
they're
to fix
telling
it.
you to bump it, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But
I've
yeah,
had
if they're
that
telling
answer.
you hit it, you're in trouble.
Yeah, hit it with some speed. Yeah.
And that's what my answer to people on trails, to the my spotters, the volunteer spotters that walk up and know it all. Oh, you got to hit it hard. Are you paying the bill?
Yeah.
No. Thank you. I'll take you under advisement and do it my way.
You got to hit it hard. Yeah. Did your Jeep make it? I didn't do it yet. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. But no, if you're knowledgeable, number one, I really would like people to start going, look, I have experience. It's like I was online with one of them. A gentleman with an 05 TJ was asking an exhaust question.
Mm-hmm.
I've got an 05 TJ, and I've done the entire exhaust thing.
From
okay?
bow to stern.
And actually, I've had two of them when I had the Kellys. Guess what we had to replace? The forward exhaust system. So, yeah, you go to my Amazon account, and it tells me that I bought the high-flow MagnaFlow front end with the two cats up front and the back twice, and it was for two different Jeeps. So I'm answering it in first person. But my word, the number of oh, well, I own a muffler shop for this, and oh, I've done that, and oh, I do this, and they should just rip it off and delete. And I'm like, no. And we'll get to that in the garage segment, folks, because that became one that I was like, you know what? Scott goes, you better share that.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm going to segue in real quick because we're getting near break time where you've got to go talked about our teammates in the 4x4 radio network.
Oh, yeah. I'm drawing a
But
blank
what I
there
do
for a
want to
second.
do is a segment. I like to make sure I throw this in there whenever I get one, and that is a tips from the shop phrase. We do this every time one of the shop owners that I work with gives me a call and says, I'm sick of this. I wish people would fill in the blank.
Bring a pizza.
Yeah. Cold drinks.
Pay their bills on time. No. All right. This one is relation to...
Thanks for
I
making
make
it
him nervous.
awkward.
This one comes from Ron at Red Scorpion Fab Works. It was there last week. And the thing with that Ron is fighting with right now is people who are not lubricating the slip splines on their axles. And that's where your axle shaft, gets longer and shorter as you articulate.
Axle shaft or drive shaft?
I'm sorry,
I was
drive
about
shaft.
to
Drive
say,
shaft.
I know. You
Drive
probably
shaft.
see my
Thank
face.
you.
I was
My
like,
brain went off in a. So
We're tired, folks.
here's the thing. There is some manufacturers, and I'm going to get with Ron to find out who it is, are producing drive shafts that the slip yoke assembly doesn't have a seal on it. So this becomes even more critical for those that don't have a seal. All right, we talk about after trail maintenance all the time. Changing diff lube, changing differential, is critical, particularly if you got wet. Transmission fluid, transfer case. If you went swimming, got in the mud, change it. It's cheap insurance.
Yeah.
Grease, a grease gun. If you're not buying grease in a 6-tube case, you're probably not using enough. And I hate to say it that way.
Or going over to our friends and using theirs.
But, a few of them do that. And I tell you
It's
what,
a
I have
barter
that case
system.
out in the barn with my tractor, and my Jeep steals the tractor's grease most of the time. But regardless, this issue on the slip splines has to do with the fact that most of us in lifted Jeeps have more of the spline exposed when the Jeep is sitting. So that even if you've greased the actual grease fitting on the slip yoke, the splines are exposed and rust, and they get stuck. And what happens is when you drive it to the shop, and then he goes to take the thing off, and it's gummed up and rusted on. And these people, unfortunately, for the lack of a moment's maintenance, are spending, most of them, the splines are destroyed. The rust is an abrasive. It grinds the splines down, and you have a loose fit, and then you have vibrations. And our good friend Shane over at Especially Drive Shaft Works here in Tampa gets a fair penny for cutting off your slip yoke and spline assembly and re-welding a new one on, if it's salvageable. If it's not, you're out $500 for a new shaft. What's the fix? Well, when you're done with all of your cleaning and maintenance, I don't care whether you use WD-40, what's the other stuff?
Fluid foam.
Fluid film, the sheep juice. What's lanolin, okay?
You bad boy.
Yeah, or any of those film lubricants. Spray the exposed slide areas down, the spline areas. Just give them a quick spritz on that. Any water displacing material that provides lubrication will slow down that corrosion. For that 30 seconds, Ron had 4 Jeeps in 1 week with failed drive shafts.
Yeah.
Because they were exposed after wheeling in water. And of course, for those of you who don't live in Florida, we breathe water here. It's called humidity. And if you have clean steel, it rusts immediately. So here, these people thought they were doing a great job of pressure washing under their Jeeps, but because they failed to then coat exposed metal surfaces, they lost drive shafts.
That's what
4
I did
of them.
when I used to pump the my Adams drive shaft. One had a little grease fitting, and I'd pump the grease. It would squirt out. I'm like, okay, cool, and I'd just
take
run
that
that
and
down and smooch the
What's that?
smooch,
Schmear,
Smooch?
smooch,
Smear, yeah,
smudge, whatever. Some word.
There went my street cred.
So that's a great tip from Ron. Something very, very easy to do. I'll be honest with you. Your hands are usually greasy anyway. Just rub on the splines. I'll use that word rather than the other word, and you make it happy. Get it good and greasy. I just gave
Anywho, so
Scott, our censor, a pause.
I have to burn this
I'm
now.
sure you understand the method.
Yeah, for those of you in the Tom and Dan mediocre time world, I'll have to throw this in the St. John's now. But throw all the equipment in the St. John's River. That's what they used to talk when they're done with it. Another thing, too, it tells from my shop is when you're checking in your articulation on your vehicle.
When you've done a lift.
Yeah, I had one technician. He had his Jeep up on the lift, and he was doing some work to it, and the brake line rubber was like pulled completely.
He didn't realize,
taut.
Scott was over there
And
playing the tune from Deliverance on his brake hoses.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, and he goes, oh, it's fine. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's fine. I'm like, I've seen you in pictures on social media articulating this thing. You need to do drop brackets or extended brake. Like, nah, it's fine. Okay, I walked away.
Well, so what he's trying to say is if you're doing a lift, even if you're not the one doing it, if you're having a shop do it,
keep that in mind.
Check the brake line length. Ask them to put it on the lift and lift it up, letting the axles dangle. See if the brake lines, they should have still, I'm going to say 4 to 6 inches of slack with the axles all the way drooped. Because when you articulate, okay, you twist it further. Okay.
Yeah.
So even though, the shock only goes that far. Yeah, but the brake caliper's not on the shock. The brake caliper's outboard the shock. And if you punch one end up and the other down, the shock becomes a pivot. So that outboard can drop further. Okay. And then, by the way, if you're making a sharp turn and you're lifted on the driver's side and you're making a sharp turn to passenger, you've now pushed the brake caliper even further out.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why I suggest about 4 inches of slack from full droop, just to make sure. And everybody's like,
But pinned up out of the way.
Well,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised if it's mounted correctly. You'll get a very nice loop that will
Yeah.
that will stand up by itself. But yes, I have seen Jeeps that have used. I hate to say it, but they've got too long and they've used a bungee cord to hold the cable up out of the way. But at least they were thinking about it. A last trick is one that I gave to somebody else. I didn't realize it was a trick, but they went absolutely bonkers over it. And this is suitable for a trail fix or a roadside fix that needs to fix something right away where you may not have the right tools. And it has to do with a ground issue. And I don't care what it is. In the case we were dealing with, it was in traffic, and a person was panicked. And I don't mean to pick on them, but they were nervous about the fact that their horn had died. Okay? And so they were like, but I drive on, there's a road here called Hillsborough Avenue. Does that say enough, Scott?
Well, I was going to say, don't you just get the bumper sticker, horn broke, watch for finger?
Yeah, well, that doesn't work on Hillsborough Avenue.
Okay.
You should know, of all people. How many times have you crunched or been crunched?
Wow.
Ow.
Wow, bro.
So,
right in the feels.
But this was an old redneck trick that I was taught a long time ago. But it's pretty danged effective, and I was shocked at the fact that people didn't know it.
Drill a hole in the brake pedal so when you step on it, the horn goes?
No.
Okay.
Take the ground wire that's broken, all right, and hopefully it has some slack in it. Most of them have plenty of extra. They break off at the ring fittings, and they corrode or whatever. And depending on it, let's just go with the one I was working with him right there. There was the ground bolt was right there. It was simply a 1/4 inch or metric equivalent to 1/4 inch. I strip about 1.5 inches of wire and take that, bend it in a loop. Take the tip down to where the insulation starts and hold that in one hand, and then twist that loop like a noose. Mm-hmm. And you end up with a loop of wire now that will go, you don't put it directly under a nut if you can. You loosen the nut and take the ground washer off. You slide that loop over, slide the washer on, and tighten it back down. That will collapse. First off, it won't fall. It won't unscrew itself as you tighten the nut, and it gives you as good or better of a ground than the ring terminal. Right. With no tools other than the wrench to take the nut off. And it'll get you home. And unfortunately, I'll tell you, with most of my friends that have done it, it's one of those temporary fixes that's going 5 or 6 years later.
Always.
So it's a simple trick. You can look like a hero on the side of the road or the side of a trail. Give me a crescent wrench and a pocket knife, and I can fix that ground strap.
Now, did you use a metric or standard crescent wrench?
A left-handed metric.
Ooh. So with that, we're going to take a quick break and mosey on over to the garage segment. So with that, please stand by. We'll be back for your listening pleasure. Hey, a big thank you to our Patreons, both our corporate and our regular. Remember to check out also the 4x4 Radio Network and anything else we think we should plug there, Mr. Kevin. All that is to be known.
I wish you'd stop that.
I'll edit that one.
No, that's fine. You can leave it in there. That's fine, folks. I know what I know because I've made mistakes. So you can choose to pay attention to what we say, or you go make your own mistakes. That works for me too.
I was just
don't hurt
playing.
yourself.
I was just playing. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm tired, kids. I started.
He's
class.
having an evil moment.
I'm having an evil moment. So with that, we'll get right back on down to the show. I really am truly sorry about that, Kevin. My mind is complete slurpy from trying to do all the schooling.
Complete slurpee.
Yes.
Yeah, back in school. Yes. We have the schoolboy next to us. I should make him get in those little shorts and shoes. And
I
a
am
little
in
bow
shorts
tie.
right now. You get the
You
Angus
know.
Young outfit.
Make him look like somebody going to his first year of Hogwarts.
Actually, I'm more of a Ravenclaw, to be honest with you. Besides the point, I did the test.
Okay.
Oh,
Mr.
Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
I would have said Slytherin, but we'll
Oh wow.
I don't know. Your sneaky little evil jabs.
No. Okay, there.
Are you a Hufflepuff?
I was gonna say H&R Hufflepuff over here.
Yeah. I have
Well,
a little bit of a Gryffindor and Hufflepuff.
Yeah, I get
I
it.
can kind of vary between the two.
Ravenclaw are very. They from what I read, they're very much the artistic.
Fun.
Yeah. They don't. They can be alone. Latchkey kid, if you will,
Yeah.
of the.
Yeah, got that one.
So with that, Kevin. So I heard that we have an exhausting subject.
And he's back at it
Dun,
again.
dun,
Well, where Scott is going with that one, is I had a little interesting run-in on Facebook. Nothing serious, but thought it spurred me a thought or two to talk about a topic, and that is catalytic converters. Delete or don't delete. I'm going to start off telling you my opinion is don't delete. Now, I'll justify that for you so you can understand where I'm coming from. Number one, and most of the probably the least cared about reason is illegal. Okay? In accordance with federal law, removal, tampering, disabling, or destroying an emissions control device is, anywhere from a misdemeanor to a felony, depending on what you're caught doing. Just ask some of the, some of the TV shows that showed deleting publicly, ended up in court over that stuff on some of the diesel deletes. All right, now we'll get past the legal side. The second reason I don't recommend it is modern engines are designed to function with that back pressure from the catalytic converter, as well as the computer systems utilize the forward O2 sensors, or upstream, they're called them, to adjust the fuel flow based on the load condition. And if you take those away, you will never go into what is called closed-looped mode. Closed-loop mode is where the computer monitors the exhaust with the forward O2 sensors and adjusts your fuel trim. And it's just what it sounds. It adds a little more under heavy load, takes a little bit away when it's under a lighter load, and gets you the most power and economy that can be got within reason. I'm not saying you can't tweak them. All you got to do is look at a tuner, and they tweak them. So by you just hacking it off, putting a disable or a jumper device where the O2 sensor is, you lock yourself into essentially the open loop mode, which means the computer has no choice but to read a table programmed by somebody in Detroit or wherever.
Yeah, there's no fuel trim modification.
There's no fuel trim modifications. And the problem is they don't, those baselines are very, very rich if you're living at high altitude. I may get this backwards, but they're an average of what an engine needs.
And it's usually programmed rich.
Yeah, and it's always programmed rich to protect the engine. That's their warranty. So if it's gone into limp mode, which automatically triggers in most cases open loop operation, it runs rich, which makes an engine run cooler. And that's where most people get the idea, oh, if I do a delete, my engine runs cooler. Well, yeah, it does, because you're dumping gas down the pipe. All right. So you're actually better off, unless you're running an older carbureted, which probably wouldn't have a catalytic converter anyway, okay, to leave the system in. I've heard discussions over, well, high flow, regular flow. This one will probably be controversial, but unless you are doing your whole system, what's called the air pump system, so from your intake to your exhaust tip, and balancing that system to the main component, and I'll get to this in a minute, you're probably throwing your money away with a high flow. A lot of guys will go with a high flow exhaust on a stock TJ, and we'll talk about how great it is, but they're really not seeing the benefit because the TJ's stock intake system is arguably one of the most restrictive out there. The crossover pipe that goes from the throttle body is typically either 50 or 52 millimeter, okay? That crossover pipe's, most of the time when I cut them open, it's a rotomold plastic, and you cut it open to measure the inside diameter, which really isn't round, and it's like 38 millimeters. There's your restriction.
Yeah.
All right. So you have to balance the system. And it got into, well, what did you do on Slightly Altered? And the answer was, I went to Edelbrock when I bought the head, because I have the Edelbrock Performer head for my Jeep, and they will gladly share with you the charts and graphs that say, here's your flow on your intake. How many CFM this will flow in. This is how many CFM it will flow on exhaust side. All right. Then you go and you say, well, what do I need to make sure that I have that or greater flow into the engine? That's how you size your pipe diameter. Okay. There's in the engineering world, there's a very simple formula called Q equals VA. Q is your flow equals velocity times area. All right. That's all it is. And you pick your right units and you can do it. But I didn't even do the math. All I did was go to the table. What air filter did I need to match up with the intake of the
Head?
The head?
Yeah.
A Spectre 6-inch flows this. It was equal to or greater than what the head needed. So I built the system that way. Well, this is what the head said it needed for exhaust. Okay, that was a little tougher to find somebody who would do that. And admittedly, I had to go and, remember we were talking about earlier in the show, talk to the manufacturers. Most of them are happy to work with you. And I was able to get Edelbrock to tell me what exhaust manifold they used to test their head with, because I wanted to reproduce the test results. They wouldn't necessarily give me a recommendation, but they would tell me what the parameters of their test rig was.
Right.
So I was able to go out and get a Banks 6-gun. From there, I had to look at the flow calibration for an exhaust system. I ended up with the MagnaFlow high flow cats, and they're carb compliant, but they met or exceeded my flow rates. So you see where I'm going here, folks?
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out.
And I ended up with, from air in to exhaust out, all components. You ever heard the term when you watch the ads? They talk about matched components. Mm-hmm. That's what matched components means. And as a result, as Scott can attest, my TJ probably picked up every bit of the 40-odd horse that they promised, as well as probably 40-some foot-pounds. And it's a rather lively little TJ. So it's a lot of fun. But the key there is, when I was online, I ended up dealing with a huge number of people going, well, this is what I read. This is what I saw, to the point that I had to go and upload some of MagnaFlow's information on the exhaust and say, look, here's an example. And I got shot down for, that wasn't a TJ exhaust. I know, but at least it's collateral comparison that the data is out there. And that's the point of this discussion, is the data is out there if you choose to. You can happily, I guarantee you that that Stacy's suppliers would be happy if you just fired the parts cannon at your Jeep. But you're not necessarily going to see the performance
They want
that
you
you
to
expect.
use it correctly. I like how you said call them.
Yeah.
Talk to them. Because they're not only, they've put their blood, sweat, and tears into most of this, and they're very proud of their stuff, and their education costs them a lot in time.
It does. And for them to
they would
share
rather
it.
you use it right than get a bad name.
And so, that's why when I answer the questions, it's, to me, I try and give you firsthand experience of what worked for us, as well as what didn't. That's where we come from on this show, is what worked for me. Well, this combination, it's not that I'm going to walk out there and tell you that, oh, everybody needs a MagnaFlow high flow exhaust for their TJ. No. My answer is, you can buy, now, don't get me wrong, I really like the quality of MagnaFlow, and not a sponsor. But anyway.
I have them too, and it's not a sponsor.
But the key there is, you can get by with their stock replacement if you have a stock induction system and a stock head. They're sized equal or greater to the need of the motor.
I do have to interject here for a quick second because unfortunately you're fighting the human condition. You guys made a couple of very good points about contacting the manufacturer. You talked about one guy found a generalized...
I'm glad you picked up the thrust of this.
Well, the point is you also talked about how you Google searched it, you know. And I always tell people Google is not a parts calendar.
It is not.
A parts catalog.
Parts catalog.
Thank you. Google is not a technician.
No.
Google is a tool to be used. So they may not have these specifics broadcasted or published on Google because of proprietary means. That's why we talk about contacting them, because everyone says, well, they're just trying to keep things close to the chest. Well, yeah, that's how they make money. So if you talk and explain what you're doing, like Edelbrock wouldn't tell you exactly which one they used.
Well, they wouldn't recommend one. But they would tell me what they used in their test rig.
He was slick. He slid that in.
Yeah, he slid that in. But the point, though, is that you can probably get test parameters, and therefore doing a little legwork. I'm sorry, some things you do still have to work for.
Yeah.
What's that we say? Do your own research.
Do your own research. So all the information's out there, but it just may take more than one phone call. It may take more than a 2-second Google search.
Yeah, and remember, I have a slightly similar but slightly different. I remind people, Google is an opinion, not fact.
Well,
It's
see,
a source.
I just Googled that, and Google said you were wrong.
That's fine, and they can block me. And the key there is, I'm sure there are facts there, but if you treat it as opinion and then validate through manufacturers who are guaranteeing, who put their name on products, what?
No, I do this to get away from school, and we talked about this earlier. I'm taking psychology, the scientific method. This is following me. It won't let me be.
Well, what you're finding out is school does reflect real life in your case.
No, because I have never, ever, ever, ever needed to know at what point if a train leaving Butte, Montana at 35 miles an hour, what will it intersect an airplane leaving from California? I'm sorry, I never need to know that.
You don't travel much, do you?
I was going to say, unless you're going to California.
I just get a one-way ticket, or not one-way, but
that's his problem.
Look, every word has its meaning, and meanings of words have 1,000 words. So read my lips. Okay, moving on.
So anyway, folks, I guess the point of this is twofold. One, if you're going to go for a certain goal, make sure that you treat the whole system.
Yeah.
And that is important. Just like we talked, most of you get the idea that if I want to re-gear my Jeep, I need to also, if I want to retire to a bigger tire, I probably need to re-gear, and then I probably need to reset my speedometer calibration. That's a system analysis. Right. But the same thing comes in when you're dealing with engine power, when you're dealing with electrical power, when you're dealing with any of the vehicular systems. You need to look at them as a whole. And the second point,
throwing a lot of money in one part and then having lesser parts connected to it, how does that make any sense?
It doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It really doesn't, you know. And you then, without making this a whole course on engine and Jeep design, you then take what's called the key part. You have to decide that.
Yeah.
And you make everything work to the key part. In my case, it's pretty obvious. The head's where the world happens. That's where the explosion happens. That's where the motive power happens. And that's where when things break, it gets really expensive.
Find the weak point you want.
Yeah. And then I fit everything to match that. If you're doing a drivetrain, I will tell you, don't try and make it bulletproof. Just make sure that the fusible link or the breaking point is something easy to fix.
Yes,
a drive
especially on the
shaft
trail.
is a pain. But it's cheaper than a transmission or a rear axle.
Or a ring gear.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I see guys that are even going above 1350 and saying, oh, this will never break. No, it won't. So what will in its place?
Yes.
So remember to kind of keep the whole thing in your head that when you hit that rock, there's a shock load, and it's going to go all the way up to the crankshaft.
Right.
What do you want to break?
And what's funny is that's something Raceline Wheels actually tells a lot of the racers and stuff is, a racer will be like, oh, I broke my wheel or I folded my wheel or what have you. And they're like, how much cheaper is it to replace that wheel versus all the other equipment you have under that vehicle?
That's your
You
fusible
got
link.
100, 200 grand, actually worse than that. Woo, I don't even want to name prices
Yeah, I
of
was
some of
gonna
those
say.
racers. But yeah, it just... if you're gonna find your weak point, find one that you like and you can stock and you can fix on the trail.
And that's one thing I call it the 30-37 dynamic. And my friend, he worked at 4 Wheel Parts, lived in Pennsylvania, and he put 37s on his JK. You know, this is back in 2009. You know, when the JK platform was relatively new. I said, don't do it, because he wanted to put don't do it. He wanted to put chromoly axle shafts.
Right.
I said, don't do it. Run your factory shafts. No. I said, no, run your factory axle shafts. He goes, no, why? And I said, because you want that fuse to be outside, easy to fix. So he put his chromoly axle shafts in, went wheeling on a 3-day weekend, got out there on Friday, blew his ring and pinion on the front differential.
On the first day.
On the
first
first
day.
30 minutes. The first 30 minutes. Okay, hold on. So he gets it back, and they said, well, it's probably a casting in the ring and pinion. So they warranty it, put a new ring and pinion in. Second 3-day weekend, 30 minutes into it.
It blows it.
Bang. And he told me, I said, really? So how'd your U-joints look? You know, so that's one of the, so I call it the 37-30 dynamic.
Yeah.
You know, make your fusible link outside where it's easy to get
Where
to.
you can get to. That's why I laugh, because everybody talks about the slightly altered. And why did I use the lighter duty hat style front hub disconnects rather than converting to the big heavier 3/4 ton? Because that will break first. I can then take the tire off, and if I carry a spare, slide one on and put the tire back on. And if I break that one, I can take the tire off, take the one off there. Believe it or not, I stretch a plastic bag over the end of the shaft, okay, and punch it over the studs and put the tire back on and trim the tire and drive home on 3 wheels by locking the front diff. It gives me a very easy, accessible, fusible link that is strong enough 99% of the time. And so far, I haven't broken one. Now, tomorrow I probably will, but the point is that I've tried to think that through and make it so that if I forget that I have to drive it home and do something stupid, I might still survive the trip. As opposed to some of our friends that, you know, seem to frag the U-joint in the front axle and then wonder why their front wheel's going crunch, crunch, crunch.
And spend the rest of the trip fixing it.
So, but that kind of stuff happens. Don't want to be ending this one on a Debbie Downer.
No, we're not.
But you know, I guess if there's anything, as we said before, I'm going to second it because I think it's really important. Look at your Jeep as a system. Mm-hmm. Look at it from whatever you're working on, from intake to out, to start to finish, you know. And then don't be afraid to call the manufacturer's helplines. I kid you not. They will spend an amazing amount of time, if you're not just and desk building, but actually asking good information. He's got to record it because I used the B word.
No, you used the S word.
Well, yeah, that too. That gets bleeped or air gunned or whatever it is out. So they're there to help you. And that's one of the reasons, you know, I asked Stacy to come on the show, was that she represents, or at least contacts with, a multitude of these different vendors that we all look at and buy from.
All four, they have all kinds of different companies. It's not just one
and
5.
and we were talking about it. She goes, yeah, that's key. We want people, what'd you say? We want you to use our product successfully, is I think what you said yesterday.
Yes.
And so
the better you know every part that you put on your vehicle, the better you understand how it actually works, the better wheeler you are. Mm-hmm. Because if you can visualize what's going on underneath you, then you can understand how to handle the obstacles in front of you.
Yep.
So.
And before I close the garage door, I do want to give you guys an update. I gave you through a teaser last show, but I got to answer that teaser. I talked about the CJ7. That's the Franken Jeep with all the different motor and parts and bits and pieces. You had a name for it. I forget what you were going to call it.
Well, actually, you talk about looking at a Jeep as a system. I'm like, some people out there rename their Jeep Blue Screen of Death.
Well, that too. That's true. But that's not this one. This is the one that I mentioned last show, is a wiring project that we're going to be doing.
It's a mutt.
It's a mutt. It's a, an 84 CJ7 with a
Jigsaw.
YJ motor with a TJ head and induction system and a GM distributor, and converted from automatic to manual,
And
the
carburetor.
Renix Yeah, and then a Holley 2-barrel carburetor, and we need to make it a unified system again. And I'd hope to be well into that project right now. Unfortunately, due to the C word that keeps floating around here and people in face masks, the painless wiring is having trouble getting the connectors to make the loom kit. They're out of stock. They have the wire, they have most things, but there's like 2 or 3 of the specialty old connectors. When they provide their kits, Painless provides a really thorough, well thought out kit with the optional leads that I need to take this mutt of a Jeep and make it a unified operating system again. I don't know which connectors they are short. You know, unfortunately, the guy on the counter didn't know which one they were missing, but they said, "We're sorry. We'll ship it as soon as the parts come in." So unfortunately, that's on hold for the moment. As soon as it starts, you guys will know about it, and I think it's going to be a fun one because, like I said, it's one of these universal CJ kits that has all kinds of options. So hopefully we can, when I looked at it online and compared it to the connections that I have to make for, okay, what kind of water temperature sensor, what kind of oil pressure sensor, what's this with? And it also has the GM 3-wire alternator. Yeah. The Painless kit has those options provided, and you just plug in the right parts and don't plug in the ones that you don't need. So I'm really anxious to get started, but I'm sorry to report that we have a slight delay, you know. Well, please rest, have an extra drink, and we'll notify you when your aircraft is clear for takeoff.
Well, I do want to touch up on that because being in the parts business right now, things are frustrating. And as Stacy would probably attest to, is that suppliers are having problems, and some of these FedEx, UPS drivers, they don't know what teams are there till that morning because whomever might be sick or whatever's running, plane may not get there because they can't ship stuff on air freight anymore because the planes aren't running like they used to be.
Yeah, so it's all slow boat.
Everything's being shipped ground. So you might I have seen some hate towards some vendors and some manufacturers. Oh, I don't have my parts yet. I ordered them 6 months ago. I know it. Just be patient. And patience is key right now because, as I'm sure everyone will attest to, these people don't want you to be angry. They want you to get your stuff as fast as possible, but they're bound by the limitations of the current supply chain.
Right.
Yeah.
But then again, don't just sit there and fuss. Call them.
Call them.
Yeah, call them and talk to them.
Communication's
key.
As mad as you are, as soon as you have that conversation, usually you're feeling a little better.
Exactly. I mean, we just had a situation where it took 2 weeks to get frozen dog food for Gunner.
Oh no.
And my wife called up the place, and I'll give them a shout out if no one minds.
No,
it was the farmer's market or the farmer's dog, and we
never heard of them. But then again, I don't have a dog.
Either.
Well, basically, they make human grade food. It's human grade food, and 2 weeks for a certain shipping company to get to our house. Well, by then the food was spoiled because it comes in dry ice.
No.
So we called up expecting braced ourselves for the sorry, there's nothing we can do, and they said, yeah, we know, supplier problem. We'll overnight another box right out to you. You'll have it tomorrow, and we had it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I went on Facebook because 10,000 people will say something wrong and only 4 will say something good.
Yeah.
I made sure to say thank you. So again, call them, like you said, talk to them, and they will do their best to make it right. But other than that, I mean...
Well, and on that note, Stacy, thank you so very, very much for being willing to come on the show.
Yeah. Oh, no, this has been fun.
I hope our listeners and our Patreons have enjoyed this. I know I have. And yes, we have the little, they're used to Zaya, the security cat, and now we've got the...
Leela,
like Lilo and Stitch.
Lilo and Stitch, yeah.
Lilo's just a pretty face on the... She's eye candy for the camera.
Exactly. So real quickly, why don't you give out your social media so people can follow you from our links?
I would love that. I am Southern_as_sweet tea on Instagram.
Okay.
And then I also have a YouTube that I started to launch, and because of the C word, we took a small break, but it's coming back this year.
Okay.
That is Somewhere with Southern and Sweet Tea
All right.
on YouTube. And then I'm also, I have Southern and Sweet Tea, which is a page on Facebook.
Yep.
That is also connected to my Stacy Lynn Smith, which is my Facebook page.
For the
And you're
Patreons,
welcome
it's
to
sitting
reach
there
out
right
to
there.
me.
So if you see the Jeeps with the attractive blonde in the middle, you're on the right page.
That's so nice.
Well, and just let them, our listeners say, hey, we heard you on the show, and at least let you know that, and share it with your friends. Because, I mean, the cool thing is, like, her husband, Nodwin, has said, the Jeeping is family and community. Yeah. And that's true. We are a Jeep family, we are a Jeep community. And, we bring people into Kevin's house and the studio to people that we really trust and know that have the best interest in Jeepers.
Yes.
And I guess at the core of their, oh my goodness, words. I am. Someone help me, please.
Scott's having a meltdown here, but we're happy to have Stacy. And
I'm blessed to be here.
Family
I love it.
here. We are very appreciative of her sponsors and friends in the Jeep industry.
It needs to be about gratitude. Push that gratitude forward.
It does.
Yes.
Share it when it's right. Don't just share it when you're frustrated.
Yeah.
And, don't be afraid to correct it. If you mistakenly blamed a vendor and it turns out that it was your shipper, correct yourself. I know it's embarrassing, it's hard, but the truth is, as Scott said it bluntly, we occasionally veer off into the social media world and talk about it a little bit. It's tough. It's easy to complain.
Yeah.
It's just as easy to compliment.
Yes.
There are a lot of great vendors out there that are struggling just as much as you are with the times and the issues. But the key is they're willing to share. They're willing to teach. They're willing to help. So, use them and say thanks. It never hurts, A
lot of them was you before they got this company. They were in their home creating something that was useful to them. And they all have most of them have such amazing backstories.
Right, and if that isn't a teaser, I don't know what is, folks. We're working with the young lady to get some of these folks together and maybe get their shows and their stories on the trail.
You would not imagine the great stories that are out there. They're awesome.
It's just funny you all just said that because again, I champion this issue at work. And I want to say it now, like Kevin just said it. And both of them the light bulb came on. What I was trying to say earlier was, remember, there's people behind that phone or that email that are struggling to, handle the workload, if you will. A little bit of human kindness goes a long way.
Yes. And I'll volunteer my time a little bit. You can look down my list of people that I'm super blessed to work with, but that is not all of it. My network is extensive. Reach out to me. If you don't, if you're one of those that doesn't like confrontation, or you're just not really sure how to handle it, and you need a little more advice, or you want someone to reach out on your behalf, I don't mind.
Yep.
Reach out, talk to me.
So with that, we've definitely run this one through the long trail and a gamut of different subject matters.
Through the meat grinder that is my mind at the moment.
Well, yeah, Scott is studying, as we've talked about on the other shows. He started his career-changing education, and more on that later. We don't want to. He's literally only his first couple of weeks. I've already had the first call. Oh, my God, I made a mistake. I'm going to quit. No, you're not. To, hey, I'm already a week ahead in my studies. I got 90-somethings on my quizzes. Congratulations.
You can burn a week's worth of emotions in one day.
Well, I'm just trying to make it quick for the people since we are trying to do our outro.
Yeah.
From the show, Scott, we all wish you well, and I'm glad to hear that you're finally getting your learning head back in gear again. It's tough when you've been out of school for so long to bring it back. And remember how to learn.
Yeah, so if it takes an extra day to get an email back, I'm sorry, guys.
So it might take more than one. So again, thank you, Stacy, for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
We do appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it.
So, Scott, I think with all of that, I think it's enough said. Time to lock up, put the Jeep in 4 low, and hit the trail.
And remember to take nothing but pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave the trail.
Yes, we want to keep it there for our children.
Right!
And how to blow it at the end. But anyway, yes, remember, we want to keep the trails open for our kids and our kids' kids, because if we keep messing them up, they're going to take them away.
Yep.
So with that, have fun. Keep the rubber down and the roll bar up, and we will see you on show 111 here in another 2 weeks.
All right, well, toodles. Let's try that again. Toodles, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precautions, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.